Hey everyone, we have made it to my 10th video, so I think it is time you subscribe. Make sure you turn your notifications on so that you know when I post new videos. Today is an exciting one. I'm going to be trying out oil paint for the very first time. So I found this Daler Romney set at Walmart for $2.99. Whenever I try a new style of art, I like to find an affordable option to buy first because I don't want to invest in some quality expensive supplies until 1, I know that I like oil painting, 2, I can test the waters a little bit and figure out what I want out of my oil paints, and 3, the cheap stuff might work well enough. So I always like to find an affordable option to try out first. Once you've got your new supplies, of course, you want to test them out a little bit before you use them. So I've got a mini canvas here and I'm just playing around a little bit. I'm practicing blending because I know oil paint doesn't dry as quickly as acrylic, so it's great for blending right on the canvas. Also, I'm just practicing with the color a little bit because I only have primaries, so I'm going to have to mix all the other shades. I play around a bit mixing some skin tones on here. I won't actually show you doing that, but I'll kind of explain it while I paint because I've got this large, beautiful painting to do, so I can talk about that while you watch me paint it. As you can see, I'm painting a bloody nose, and I know that sounds a little bit odd, but I love the juxtaposition that the gritty violence of the blood has against the soft romanticness of a woman's mouth. Ew, that sounds so creepy, but you know what I mean when I say that. I just love the vibe that this piece has. So usually at this point in the artwork, after I've sketched it and I'm starting to lay color down, the first thing that I do is water down the acrylic and cover the whole canvas in the base colors just to kind of map it out, get a feel of the tones, and it's less intimidating. I think I've explained that in a previous video. But with the oil paint, I don't have a medium because I'm trying to do this most affordable way possible. So I really just have to jump right in with the shading. So I'm starting with the nose because I've mixed up a couple different skin colors. So I thought I would do the different gradients of the nose and just jump right in to the shadows and everything. It was a little bit out of my comfort zone, but that's kind of what I like about it. It's fun. I love watching professional oil painters where they just jump right in and they just work on one small little piece in all the detail. I think it's so professional, but I just don't have that talent yet. So I do things a little bit differently. So this was kind of a challenge for me, but when you're challenging yourself, you're learning. So I did enjoy doing this. So since my set only came with black, white, yellow ochre, and the primary colors, the way I made my skin tone was, I played around a bit first. I tried to add white to the yellow ochre, but it came out much too yellow and warm. You can actually see it on my little practice canvas. On that bottom right of it is the yellow ochre. And this person I wanted to be much more sickly. So even for the lips here, you can see I'm using the skin tone mix with extra blue and white to make them look really drained of blood and color. But for the skin tone, I used basically the same amount of red and yellow with maybe half that amount of blue and then a lot of white. For the shadows, I'm adding in a little bit of blue and some of that skin tone mixture with more red and less white. You can also use that if you want a darker skin tone, and you can add different amounts of blue for different amounts of cool tone and warm tone. But at this point, I'm using so much paint that I'm getting really frustrated. I don't have a paint thinner, so I'm showing you here how thick the paint is. You really can't spread it out. I even tried using water just to show, even though everyone knows you can't use water with oil paint. I just wanted to show you there's really no way to spread it and thin it out. So I was talking with the teacher of the art group I go to, and he actually said you can use nail polish remover, and I saw online that you can use vinegar to clean your brushes. So you can see here how thick that paint is while I'm picking it up, and then once I start to add the nail polish remover, it really does work to thin it down, and it makes it easier to spread across the canvas. I can't compare this to a regular oil paint medium or paint thinner because I haven't tried them, but I will say that this does work. I use it throughout the rest of the painting. So if you're wanting to do what I did and not spend money on barely any supplies, or you just need a quick at-home remedy to make this work, nail polish remover did work and it didn't give me any problems. You can see there it already thinning out the paint, making it lighter, making it easier to spread. Normally the edges were so rough and hard to spread, and you can see right there you can blend them out and almost blur them the same way that you can use water to do with acrylic. So that was a lifesaver to fill the rest of the canvas because I was wasting so much paint, especially the white, to cover this canvas. I ended up using that whole tube of white paint just for this painting. Once the canvas was covered and all the skin tone was down, I started adding some blue for the shadows. I wouldn't always recommend using blue for shadow on a face, although in some areas, in some photos it works. But the reason that I'm using it for this is because I wanted that person to have a more sickly look, like I said in the beginning, where their skin was almost, drained of blood and they looked very pale. I could have gone that angle even harder. I didn't want them to be completely dead looking, but I definitely didn't want to use warm tones for the shadows because I wanted to give that blue-white skin kind of vibe. Next, I'm going to focus on adding some dimension to the lips and a little bit of the pink tone to them. I do want them to look drained, but I don't want them to look like they're wearing a white lipstick, so I'm kind of finding the balance in between that. And this is where I love oil paint because the white that was on the lips was still not dry even after all that time. So I just took a tiny bit of red, and I didn't actually have to create that pink. I just blended it with the white that was already on the painting. So it was just kind of a cool thing I found that I don't ever get to find when I use acrylics, that I could blend even after all that time because the paint hadn't dried. So I'm focusing on the blood now. I want it to look more runny around the mouth, so I'm having it kind of seep into the creases of the lips because I want it to be wet looking. Here's where I came to my first negative of these paints, and it was the caps were turning black inside them. On the white here, I honestly thought that was the black cap, and I accidentally put it on the white, but I double checked and it was happening on all of them. It even kind of came off on some of the paint. So I don't know if you've ever had that happen before, if that happens a lot with oil paints, or if this is just a cheaper brand. I don't know what caused that, but it was a little bit of annoyance, so I did just want to point that out. But it was the only problem I came across with these, and they were $3, so you just have to take that all into consideration. Now I would say we're kind of in the final stretch here. We're just going to add the darkest of shadows and the whitest of highlights. So first I'm taking that really deep dark skin tone mixed with blue and adding in some of the shadows. And I'm taking that, you can see that really warm tone brown, and I'm going to add that in across some of the blood. I'm not going to put too much on the lips because I want that to be pinker and wetter, but on the skin, especially underneath the lip, it's going to be much darker and look a little bit more dried and thicker kind of blood. I also wanted to add a little dimension to the nose. It was kind of looking flat, and from that angle, I've never painted a nose that close up from that angle before, so I just wanted to add a little bit of shape to it. I'm also just deepening up really throughout the whole entire picture. I lined the top of the lip with this really light green color. I kind of struggled with what color I would use to line the lips. They're very white and don't seem to have an edge, but I didn't want to use the same color I was using for the shadow. I didn't think it would look right there. It would kind of look like a lip liner or something. So I kind of struggled with what I wanted to use there, but I really liked the way that light green looked. It's a really cool color that I could have used for more of the skin if I really wanted that dead, sick look. But, you know, like I've said 1,000 times, I kind of wanted a balance in between the two. So I like that I have it in there, but I also like that it's not everywhere. If I could do one thing differently, it would be define that area between the top lip and the nose, that little crevice. I know there's a name for it, but I cannot think of it. If I could change one thing, it would be either defining that better or making the blood not turn quite as sharp, because since I didn't define it, if you look at it too closely, it doesn't really make sense for the blood to be turning quite so sharp. It should be at a smooth curve. Everything else is a smooth curve. But if I would have defined it better, it would make sense on why it's doing that and where it's running off of. So one or the other, I wish I would have fixed a little bit. But I could work on my art forever, so at some point I just have to stop, and I am happy with how it looks. So I'm going to add the white highlights. I'm adding some just to define the edges of the lips, and then at all the points of the blood where it's wet and it would be reflecting light. I'm also making that blood like bleed out a little bit. You can see I added little tiny lines coming out from the side of it just to make it look more realistic and less sharp. At this point, you want to just take a step back, admire your amazing work, and see if there's any last minute things you want to change. And for me, I just wanted to lighten up that shadow on the side of the nose because I wanted the shadow on the other side of the nose to be the darker side. So I just lightened it up a little bit, and it was really easy to do because with the oil paints, they don't dry as quickly and you can blend them right on the canvas. So I just touched it up a little bit and I was finished. And that brings us into our final thoughts. So the $3 Daler Rowney paint from Walmart worked amazing, especially for the price. I love oil paints. I'm definitely going to be using them again. Even the nail polish remover as thinner worked great. I was really proud of myself. Again, it's always tough to try a new style of art, so for my first oil painting, I loved it. I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more oil paint in the future. I think it's right up my alley. So make sure you stick around and subscribe so you can see how those videos are going to turn out and see what style of art I'm going to be trying next week.